Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Doom Mixtape. I am your host. I say that in my podcast, but yes, I am your host, Liz Ryerson, aka Ella Guro, and we're going to look at a map from No End in Sight, a set that I've talked about before, but before it was officially released to the public. So No End in Sight is a set by this guy, Emil Brundage, aka Natural 20. I think I called him Natural 20 in my previous video. And Zazer, who's done a bunch of different things, very prolific Doom modder. And also Michael Lutz did a few maps. I think 40 ounce, who's a Doom modder, might have done one map, but it's No End in Sight is about 60% Natural 20, including this map, which is the penultimate map from the third episode, which I think is the most interesting episode of No End in Sight. So yeah, this set, the last video I did was my original Doom Mixtape videos, which is like 7 freaking years old now. But that was before this was officially released. So for years, this set was mostly done, and there was like a public beta. But I think it took years for Zazer to finish like a handful of the maps. So while this set was released, I think towards the end of 2016, like a lot of it was done, I don't know, 2013, 2012-ish, something like that. I think except for the 4th episode. But yeah, so this level is called Netherworld Citadel, and it's probably one of the most famous maps. I say famous in relative terms because I don't think this set is well regarded. I wouldn't call it like a super famous set. I'm kind of surprised by that it's not more known, and I think probably part of the reason is it's not a Doom 2 megawatt, it's a Doom 1. And the kind of aesthetic approach, the approach to gameplay, and just the general like environment, and the stubborn resistance to using custom music are in keeping with just the fact that Natural 20 Emil Brundage just really likes the mood of Doom 1 and wanted to do a Doom 1 set, which I totally understand. I mean, I agree with that. I have much more attachment to Doom 1 because I played that first, and also I feel like the levels are a bit more atmospheric and a bit more open-ended and etc. So No End in Sight kind of has that style. I think it was described as kind of being a takeoff on Doom the Way It Did, which came out, I think, in 2010. And some of these maps were potentially Doom the Way It Did maps that they, so Doom the Way It Did, by the way, is a set where they attempt to replicate the styles of the original maps. This giant crusher here is interesting. This always reminds me of this giant crusher area. Reminds me of the forest temple in Zelda Ocarina of Time. There's like a similar contraption, and actually this level, just the weird open-endedness and kind of the spooky feeling of it reminds me a little bit of like a Zelda dungeon. Almost more than like, your typical Doom map. There's definitely something different about it. There's kind of an attempt to almost stubbornly replicate the original style. Doom the Way It Did was this set that, where they tried to replicate the style of the original maps, original designers, faithfully. And this set is kind of like if you can imagine a Doom the Way It Did map, except pretty, taken further. So it's like starting with that basis and then becoming, its own thing. So that's really what No End in Sight is. And I'd say the further you get into the set, the more, the bigger the scope gets, which I think is really interesting. Like the first set is kind of there are a lot of takeoffs on the original episode, but then it really starts to get interesting to me in the second episode. And then the third episode is the most interesting one to me because it has this odd progression where if you there's like a secret exit and a non-secret exit, and if you go through the secret exit, you actually skip some levels and you don't get to see them. So the non-secret exit is like harder to get to, and there are like multiple places where you can miss maps. So like map 5 and 6 you might just miss altogether and you might go straight to this map. But in either case, you play this map regardless. But this map is kind of a similar I don't know, this map captures the overall episode in that you can finish pretty early on. Now, I already got the blue key, and that's very important. The yellow key is not too hard to get either. So this was probably the most like far-flung area that someone might be likely to miss at the beginning of the map. And you've probably seen on the screen that there are so many secrets in this map. There are 20 secrets. I think I only got like 5 or 6. The counter isn't going to be great because there are sometimes when I die and then, forget to re-get a secret. But the other thing is I'm pistol starting this map on ultraviolence, and, maybe that's a normal thing for people who are, experienced doomers, but I feel like a map like this is probably more fun if you're playing in the context of the episode because there's so many freaking hit scanners, and I'm just kind of struggling for health. It's engaging and a nice challenge in its own way, but I really start to feel it at the end because there are 700 plus fucking enemies in this level. The thing is, I won't see most of them because, like I was about to say, there's a lot of places you don't necessarily need to go to in this map. And I always thought that there was a secret exit or whatever. There isn't, unlike other parts of this episode. But there are sections of this map that are very easy to miss, and you don't need to complete it, which is good. I think a good approach to this map. So there is a 4th episode of No End in Sight also, and it gets harder. And there's another similar, just giant open-ended map by Natural 20, but it's more slaughtery, so I kind of like this, and I just like the mood of this map, especially the opening section here. I obviously have the light amp, so it ruins the lighting, but this is a pretty fucking dark map. Hopefully it'll show up okay on the YouTube video, but yeah, I like the light amp is actually useful here, because there's stuff I just couldn't see. So yeah, the one thing I should mention about this map is it was on the Doomworld top 100 most memorable maps. I think it was like 93, so it made it towards the bottom of the list. There's another map from this set that's higher on the list, but again, it's in episode 4 and like a little bit more expansive, and I just kind of like this map in particular. But I think because it is, it feels so kind of adventurous and stuff, I think I enjoyed it a bit more when I played it in the context of the set and I had more full ammo and I wasn't like scrounging and scrapping like I was in this recording. But on the other hand, it makes you appreciate things that were done in this map. Like I'm really trying to kill these hit scanners now because I have a blur sphere, but it's screwing me over with these barons because they're firing like right at me accidentally, because if you have the blur sphere on, they won't get directly at you, so you can easily dodge into them if you're used to dodging projectiles. It's actually kind of a weird disadvantage, but obviously it's a big advantage with when hit scanners are there, because you can't dodge hit scanners. So this is like the second notable area. You can pick up the yellow key right around here. but there's a huge amount of enemies that are going to pop in. So yeah, a lot of my playthrough of this map is going to be so those are the only two keys that I need. It's possible there's a red key in this map, I don't recall, because I missed a lot. I feel like I've played more of this this map before, but I kind of just, called it quits at the end. Because like I said, this map kind of gives you the option. Once you find the exit, you can it kind of gives you the option to like, do I want to go back through this and like look for more secrets? Because, guaranteed when you first play through this, you're gonna miss a lot of stuff. So I made a big mistake by picking up the invulnerability because I forgot that there's a huge ambush that comes shortly, and I'm just gonna waste it, which is unfortunate. But I'm also pretty low on health, and dodging hit scanners is not a fun thing to do. So how about we read while I'm puttering through? I'm gonna be redoing plenty of things as I die in them, because I don't know, like I said, there are 100% playthroughs of these maps online, so this is not going to be 100% playthrough. I don't really think that that's important or necessary for the context of these videos, so I didn't like super rehearse playing this through before, but I kind of like that quality gives you a more realistic idea of how difficult these are if you pistol start them. I will wait till this plasma is done. Okay. So let's read the description from the Doom Top 100 Memorable Maps article. It says, the sheer complexity of this intimidating abyssal fortress makes it a fascinating puzzle to unravel, and it's bound to leave you wanting more if you can pick yourself up off the ground by the time you're through. Natural 20 is a master of getting the most out of Ultimate Doom's narrow scope of gameplay, and this expansive nonlinear map offers plenty of ways to tackle its challenges, including massive secret side quests. I think Doom 1 combat is a little underrated. I honestly, Doom 1 provides almost every weapon that you have in Doom 2 other than the super shotgun, of course. And, you don't have as many enemies, but it's not that far off from Doom 2. I think it's a little overstated, the, people being like, well, I don't like the combat in Doom 1 as much, because it's still essentially the same game. I understand that, Doom 2 offers some interesting dynamics in terms of the enemies in particular, but it's really not that different. However, I think going with the style of Doom 1, makes sense if you're going to make a Doom 1 set, which is why when there are Doom 1 WODs, they tend to follow that style more, The one map that I made, I guess, is a Doom 1 map, technically, for the Joy of Mapping set. So it's almost easier for me to think about the Doom 1 enemies because they're a little more straightforward. So I imagine it's probably a little more straightforward when you're designing, because it's easy to overdo it on the Doom 2 enemies as a designer. Like, you could just throw chain gunners everywhere and or revenants and stuff, and I often feel like I see Doom modders do that. So but yeah, anyway, yes, and there's massive secret side quests in this map. So my impression of this set was that Zazer was a fan. Natural 20 was not a particularly well-known mapper, but is a little older, so he had made some maps in the late 90s and early 2000s, a handful of maps. And my impression is that Zazer was a fan and eventually contacted him because he had returned to the community. He had a map in 2010, and about doing maps in this style. And then they also kind of brought in Chris Lutz, who also kind of does maps in this style, to do a few maps, to collaborate on a few. There's a few Chris Lutz maps. So, the result, it took years and years for them to finish this set, but I think the results speak for themselves. This is one of my favorite Doom sets of all time, I would say. In terms of, like, if you want something that both sticks to kind of the vanilla scope of the original, but still has its own kind of unique style and design sensibility, I feel like this set hits a perfect balance. And yeah, it does get harder, and bigger in scope towards the end, but if you're comparing it to, even like a set like Alien Vendetta becomes like a slaughter, becomes slaughtery maps towards the end, and there isn't quite anything like that in this set, so I feel like it's definitely worth it, and one that I would recommend to people right away, to almost anybody. There's sets like Alt, which are my favorite, but I might recommend with a few more caveats, but that's not the case with this set at all. I guess it's a little bit more big and mazy. So I guess the reason why this set has been on my mind is I've been playing some co-op with Xandronum with a friend, and we played through episode 2 of this set. And the penultimate map for that is also by Natural 20, and it's not as big as this map, but it is very open-ended as well, and we just got lost in the map for forever. We couldn't find our way out, and it was like one design decision that he made that wasn't like, that was a little unclear. There was just too much detail for it to be super clear where you were supposed to go. But like through the process of getting lost in that map, it became this weirdly memorable experience to me, almost like you're going through someone's dream world or something. And I feel like some of these no end in sight maps really feel like this dream world. I don't know how to describe it, because it is like Doom. It's recognizably Doom, but because like, we're in the 2010s here, and with this set, and it's right now I'm trying to deal with my low health and like trying to get up to the next part and not die, so I have to do this over and over again because there are so many freaking hit scanners and I have limited ammo. So yeah, I ended up using my plasma there to get out of that situation. There are quite a few parts of this like playthrough that I'm gonna do that in. And you can see there's a lot of damaging floors in this map. Right now I'm picking up the rocket launcher, which not as useful as you would think in a map like this where there are a billion enemies wandering around that could step in front of the rocket launcher at any moment. You saw in the previous area me navigating a lot of lava, blood. And that blood is pretty darn damaging. I think it's 20%, if not 15%. So yeah, it's not fun. And that's a central feature of this map, is having to deal with the blood. So it really screws you. There isn't very much in the realm of like suits and stuff. It's possible I don't actually end up returning to this room, so this might be one of the areas that I end up skipping. I don't remember, because I kept dying here, so I don't even think I bothered going back here. Yeah, so that might have been one of the areas that I missed in this playthrough, because I didn't even bother with it. Oh, that's so funny, because after I complete this map, I kind of go back and look for stuff that I missed, and I couldn't find anything, or I couldn't find more than one or two places, and I think that was one of the places that I missed. Anyway, let's see, I was talking about, yeah, it feels like the amount of like detail and stuff is really impressive, but it also kind of, the original game wasn't necessarily designed to incorporate this much detail, And I think in this map it's a little easier because they're not using tons of different textures. It's a lot of use of that green marble, so it's like pretty clear where you need to go, but it's still like way more detail and way more like multi-directional than your typical Doom map. So it becomes this kind of like weird fever dream experience because the fidelity of the textures is lower, but the fidelity of the environments, you know, the scope of the environments is larger, and it creates something that isn't really what the original Doom is. It's something else. But it does kind of feel like a reimagining of the original game. Like there's a map in episode 2 that kind of expands on the spaceship setting that you see in episode 2 of the original Doom and episode 2 map 7. There's like a spaceship area, you know. So there's a full map like that in this, and it kind of, you know, it expands on that idea. And it's similarly in episode 3 map 6, the one before this, is kind of a takeoff. I kind of don't want to spoil that map because it's a really interesting and really frustrating map, but it's kind of a takeoff on something from the original game. So the green marble texture was always one of my favorite textures from the original game. So, but there was never quite like a full map that really utilized it in the way that like this map does, which just makes it such a central part of the map in the original. I mean, there's a level in episode 4. There's 1 or 2 levels in episode 4 which use it more, but this one uses it really to its full extent, and makes it, you know, feel like a crumbling fortress. And you know, that's the intent. It's a citadel that exists in an alternate universe. So I think that makes it really interesting. It's Zazer's and Natural 20's sensibilities echo each other pretty well, but Natural 20's is definitely more kind of dreamlike, and I think just the amount of detail and the amount of kind of multi-directionality and just the open-endedness of these maps, and a map like this, you know, where you can exit fairly early on without getting a lot of the stuff in this map, just adds to this, you know, weird fever dream quality, like the space is almost not made for you or something like that, which is not an experience I feel like is an experience you would see with older games more than you really see in contemporary games. So that's just an interesting thing about this set that I don't know, it's hard to describe exactly, but when you see it in action it makes a little more sense. This area is a weird trap. Like I think you can get stuck here. Although there's an interesting secret in here, like through the fireplace. You can see I got stuck, so I just reloaded the save because I have very low health. So yeah, this is a difficult map to pistol start. Certainly worth it if you want the challenge, but I would definitely just recommend playing through the set as a whole. Oh, an interesting fact of this level that I just saw on the wiki page of Doom Wiki is it's exploring the level out of sequence might result in large areas becoming inaccessible. Additionally, several areas cannot be revisited. So there you go. So there are parts of the level that I almost certainly missed or were locked off because of ways that I choose to do things. Now, I'm not really sure what the first sequence is. It seems like I went to the... Yeah, no, it seems like I went to the Blue Skull Key is the first area that you're supposed to go to. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of other stuff. And thank God at this point in the map I got a Berserk pack. I will also like, so crushing ceilings kind of went out of vogue in the Doom community. People viewed them as like cheap or whatever, for a long time. And with Sigil, Romero used them quite a bit. And I think it surprised people because a lot of people don't like them. But I am personally a crushing ceilings fan, and this set uses them very well. I really like the use of crushing ceilings in here. So yeah. But I don't know if there's that much more to say about No End in Sight. I mean, this set is definitely worth checking out. We can talk about what's happening in this map so far. So yeah, as you can see, I collected the first 2 keys. I'm in this area. And now there's going to be a weird... It's hard to describe this map, but you can see I'm dealing with a lot of like lava and blood situations where I'm really trying not to step on certain platforms because I don't have tons of health to deal with stuff, and I also keep trying to switch to my punch thing, but it keeps opening up the console because I have a fairly tiny laptop. So when I mash the keys, it goes to the console instead of the. But yeah, that Berserk pack was a godsend in this. Anytime that you're so low on ammo, this is an interesting area because it looks pretty simple right now. This room looks pretty simple. But there's an interesting trap here that you can see up here in a second once I kill these cacodemons. It looks like there's a whole bunch of keys and stuff, and it's like it's an obvious trap, but it's still stupid enough to where you would. It seems like you would want to get it. I like the checkerboard pattern on the floor there. There's some interesting secrets down there too. I like the use. Yeah, you can see there's 2 keys. There's a red key. So perhaps there is an actual red key in this level. I don't know. And I just, kind of knew that, like, okay, this is an obvious trap. So there's at least one secret you can get through here where it kind of gives you a bunch of med kits that you can use, but you have to take damage to get them. So that's kind of the trade-off with this map. Obviously, you can get through them by shooting that switch. That's a pretty easy switch to see. I imagine there's another way to get the Berserk pack and stuff through another secret, but I couldn't find him. I also am a fan whenever anyone uses that red brick texture. Actually, I don't know if that's a new texture. That might actually be a new texture. Okay, you can see. Then I created a weird maze situation here, and so this area is completely different now. Because I took the bait. I don't know if you actually have to do that or it's just a complete trap. It does open up some areas. You can see that like I kind of got locked into this area before when I went through the room with the cacodemon because the wall kind of went up and I couldn't go back through there. So now I have to kind of activate the sides of this area. And eventually I'm going to like hit a switch that will activate a non-damaging platform, like a green marble platform in the damaging lava area that I was at before. And it'll make it easier to get to the exit area of this. So I'm really just doing that right now, but it can be kind of hard to know what the hell you're doing in a map like this because Doom doesn't give you objectives or direction. You just kind of have to put your faith in the hands of the designer. I think that's what I like about Doom maps, but what can also be frustrating is you do. I mean, yeah, your Doom combat is pretty simple and all that kind of stuff, but you are putting your faith in the hands of the designer that they're going to guide you in a way that is both interesting and compelling, but also fair. And getting that balance, if you're designing something, is really freaking difficult. So, and I'd say that this set mostly achieves that, but sometimes it's a bit. Sometimes it's a lot, but I'll take that ambition. This these areas with the prison cells, it kind of, I mean, this is something that is in Wolfenstein a lot that isn't so much in Doom that I kind of miss, is there's attempts at like storytelling and creating some kind of environment. So there's those like prison cells over there. I'll walk through there again. This room is very reminiscent of a room in Pandemonium that uses that texture that completely destroys the quality of the video, the fire blue texture. So you can see I activated that platform now. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I'll come back to get that later, but I don't need that berserk. But I like the contrast of red and blue. That like, that's part of the reason I like that. I'm personally a fan of the texture themes of like the Hell episodes of Doom, because especially when they like play up the contrast. I was just picking that up to see if it like teleported me or did anything strange, but it doesn't. So yeah, that area to the left of the window that I was looking through will be the exit area of this map. So I'll get to it pretty shortly. And then the last 20 minutes are going to just be me wandering around trying to find extra things. Yeah, these prison cells here. This is the kind of like, you know, implied storytelling that they try to do a lot in the Wolfenstein levels that, you know, Doom doesn't have so much of. There are areas of Doom, like the spaceship area, that they do it. But by the time you get to Doom 2, they didn't even really try anymore. Even the city maps are like so abstract. And, you know, a lot of people love that. A lot of people embrace that. But I kind of miss that. And that's partly why I like something like Alt, especially in Alt, like has like city levels or Sacrament that you know, attempt to actually create an environment, even if it's kind of a weird one. And I like that. So there isn't like that much of that going on in this map, but I still enjoy when designers do it, because it shows that they're thinking about the design and progression in, even if it's not like a direct, like this has a specific narrative, they're thinking about it in kind of a narrative way. So yeah, I had to go back through that maze in order to finally activate that platform down, because I was locked off. I was stuck in that area. It's possible that I just didn't even need to go through this whole area, and it just brings me to more kind of secrets and other parts. This part might have been optional, but it was a nice diversion if that's the case. I feel like it might be required. Who knows? I mean, after reading that wiki article, I could go back and play through this and see all the different ways, but I guess if you were really compelled to do that, you could you know, like look at the map on Doom Builder. But yeah, now we're close to the end here. So this platform activated. I think this is what these platforms are what raised there. Although I'm not positive of that. So theoretically, I think you could just go through here if you wanted to tank the damage. Because I'm already having to tank the damage somewhat. But you have to tank the damage a bunch more because there's a bunch of enemies that are going to appear. I like the lava ceiling here. So this is a lot easier to deal with when you have the ammunition. I'm going to try to get clever and punch them, but there are too many different guys shooting at me from different directions for that to really work. But yeah, so I have this like gauntlet of cacos, and then I'm going to hit a switch in this area with the lava ceilings. Again, this is another way which they're trying to really be faithful to some of the quirks of the original game. My friend, you know, when we played through the second episode co-op, my friend said it's almost like this was doubling down on all the weird decisions that the original game made. But it's not really something that you see, because I don't think it's something that you would think to do unless you were trying to in some way emulate some things about the original game. So it makes sense. I don't actually know how to get to those the fire blue column with the suit and the light amp visor and the blur sphere. But yeah, so now I'm gonna have to tank a bunch of damage to get up to a platform because a walkway has been activated that'll lead me to the exit. This is another like kind of self-contained area that I don't know. I feel like Doom 1 has more of this where there's like a self-contained area where you have to hit a series of switches, and it has kind of its own character and atmosphere. And I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of the original Doom 1, like the third map where there's like just a little exit area where you have to activate stairs up to the exit or something like that. It's a little bit like that. Any place where you sort of have this exit that you can view and you're just having to handle, you know, what's here. But this is obviously a lot more frustrating. It's really just a lack of ammunition on my part, because if I had the plasma ammo to take care of these guys, then it would be way easier. And there is really precious few places to pick up the suit, and as you can see, the rockets are pretty useless because there's too many fucking enemies. So, you know, plasma ammo is everything. And potentially chain gun, but you don't really have enough time to kill them, like, before you tanking a bunch of damage. So it's a little bit hairy, and why I would probably recommend playing this in the context of the entire set rather than trying to do that. But you don't actually have to handle this, because you can just go straight to the exit here, and there are some nice extra med kits. If I were designing, I'd put even more. I like this exit room here. Very nice use of that computer bits texture. But as you can see, there are like 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes left of this video. So I'm obviously going to wander through more of this map and take one of these suits. So yeah, you're not going to see that much more of the map, but you will see me. I think there are a few areas that I find here that you'll see more of. And it's like these maps, again, I think the longer you spend in them, the more they become familiar to you. And the more you sort of make connections between this particular areas. Here's an area that I skipped earlier because it was just like, felt like an insta-death room. Now that I have a little bit of plasma, you can see a nice little secret that I'm going to find in here. I like how the sky texture is like, yeah, there's a secret through here. You can see it sends me, I don't actually think that's even a secret. It sends me back to this area. Which is an interesting kind of back way. I love it when areas kind of connect back up to each other. But it's kind of convenient because then I can go back and pick up that Berserk pack that I ignored before because I'm at 28 health. So not a bad little timing. Whenever you're playing through a map and it feels like you get health at just the right moment, it always, like, I know for a designer of a map, it just probably feels so fucking good. Especially if they get it right, like, early on. I mean, usually you have to play test a bunch for that. And I mean, this set came out, you know, it took forever to make, so I imagine that they did quite a bit of play testing on these maps before it was actually officially released. And even then, there were expanded versions. I think it said the final version 1.4 was released in 2019, July 2019. So yeah, even 3 years after this set came out, they're still adding patches. Yeah, the other thing is the Doom Classic Unity port, I think you can play through the Switch. There's some access to some supported WADs on the Switch, and this is one of them. So you can play this set if you download, I think you have to have like a Bethesda account or something like that. But if you have Switch on, if you have Doom on Switch, you can play through this whole set on your fucking Nintendo Switch, which is pretty darn cool. So yeah. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I totally recommend it. Maybe I should try that sometime. I mean, I've already played through this set. I might play through some of the others. I'm about to travel soon, which is part of the reason I'm putting out this video now. So maybe I will download it and check it out at some point, but I still need to play through Doom 64. So yeah, this has Doom furniture, always a good thing. But the Doom furniture, you know, it's not garish. It's kind of to the sides. It's kind of like a nice... I like it whenever they, you know, a map, it doesn't foreground those elements of it. I was able to get back through this area just merely because of a demon opened it, because I wouldn't be able to otherwise. On my video, I can actually see what is going on in this room, but when I was playing through this map, I could not see fucking anything of what was happening in this room. I think it's just a trap, because it's just an empty, dark room with a bunch of imps and a lift. But God, I could not see fucking anything. I can see it on the video right now, so I have no idea if you'll actually be able to see this on your own. Like I said, this is a pretty dark map. So yeah, there's a few more areas. There's an interesting secret with bookshelves. Again, like I like how the elements of like a real life space that might show it being lived in are kind of to the sides on this map, and the more hellish elements are foregrounded. That's, I don't know, it's interesting. It's a little subtle. This area, like another designer might make this area with the bookcases and this soul sphere. They might make this like a key area because they're like, yeah, I like this room. I want to do something here. I'm going to put the key here, and you have to actually go through this whole path and go down the bookshelves to actually pick up the key. But no, this is just a soul sphere secret. You don't have to do this. So that's the pretty cool thing about a map like this. They kind of, you know, you can approach it the way you want. It's a bit immersive sim or something. You know, like a Deus Ex or Thief level. Obviously, not quite like that, but maybe similar design philosophy in some ways. I'm pretty low on health, so I really want this, but unfortunately I can't get to it unless I go through this, I don't know. I have to come down through the bookcases to do it. And I don't know how to do that. I have to go up through there, obviously, but it might have been through that area that I skipped past because I didn't have the health to go through it earlier, to be honest. And there's another area with crazy-ass lifts. Definitely an homage to the crazy-ass lifts in Episode 2, I think Map 3. And I put crazy-ass lifts in my Joya mapping map. So definitely a Doom 1 thing that I very rarely see anybody else do. Here's a whole other area, too, that I might not have explored. I don't know. Who knows what's there? This was just backpacks, but it's possible that going into that area would have led me into where I needed to go, but I just didn't have the health. You can see I have 6% health, so it was kind of a moot point at that point. I was really just kind of wanting to get out of there. So, yeah. This is just a trap here. I fell down that area earlier, and when I activated that staircase. So yeah, just continuing to explore the nooks and crannies. Eventually, I kind of just decided to spoiler for the end of this video, but yeah, I just decided to cut my losses and exit there. So, but like I said, there's a 100% playthrough of this map. So yeah, what else is there to say about this? I think Doom 1 is just underrated as its own game. I mean, I know it's generally agreed upon that the quality of the maps in Doom 1 are higher than in Doom 2. I think most people generally agree. Most people generally agree that Doom 2 was maybe a little rushed in some ways. This is another very neat secret here. That could be a whole thing in another map, but no, it's just a secret here. And it looks like there's a whole other secret area through there, too. But yeah, I have a huge gauntlet of imps that I completely ignored and just ran past, which is the nice thing about the design of a map like this. Because the space is big enough to where it's like, well, I'm going to cut my losses and just not deal with these guys, because I don't need to. It's a little tedious too. Which is why I said, if you have a ton of BFG ammo, this map might be a little bit more fun. But yeah, I don't know. I think yes, I do think the level design is better in Doom 1, partly because they didn't quite know what they were making, and there's a combination of a bunch of different elements to it. And I don't think if they had known exactly what they were making, they would have made maps quite the way that they did for the original Doom 1. I know that's definitely true for Episode 2, because so many of those maps are by Tom Hall and were for a game that didn't really end up being the game that they made. But still somehow work really well, which is kind of bizarre. But also, I think it's just time and energy that was put into it. So I don't know. I just appreciate these sets that do the original original thing. Here's another. Shooting that switch activated something. I'm not sure exactly what it activated, but I'm almost certain that that's a secret of some kind. Yeah, I like it when, a map does it where there's like on the exterior, there's like just one solid texture being used and it just looks like one thing. But then when you go inside, it's like this weird den of hellishness and there's all these crazy textures and all this kind of stuff. It's like, that you don't see from the outside. It's like hidden on the inside. Kind of, that's the whole part of Doom, is that it, to kind of freak you out with architecture and stuff that you wouldn't see otherwise. Okay, here's another area. So I think I could get back to that other area if I went through that gauntlet that I skipped earlier because I didn't have the health to deal with it. So I think that's how you get through there. But there are so many things in this map that I just skipped because I didn't have the health to do them. So again, something that you might see more of if you have more ammo to handle all these guys if you're playing through the whole set. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. I mean, I would recommend totally playing through this set, playing through the third episode. The third episode is my favorite. I don't think I've fully finished the fourth one. It's been a while since I played it, so I can't remember. But I would recommend playing through and actually trying to get the normal exit so that you could see all the maps in the third episode. And I just generally like the idea of like the Doom megawatt progression. It just always tends to stick to the same thing. It's like, there are 30 maps and there's a secret map on map 31 and 32. Sorry, there are 32 maps and there's a secret map. The secret map goes from map 15, or if you're playing like, Doom 1, it still follows the progression of the original. So when someone tries to like hack it and do something interesting with it like that, where you can just totally skip maps and like there's a whole different progression that you might go through, I'm just fascinated by the idea in general. Oh, there's a switch there that I saw on video that I could have hit, but I couldn't see it because it was too fucking dark on this playthrough. Yeah, I walked right by a switch that would have probably activated that secret, but I could not see it because it was too freaking dark when I was actually playing through. That's funny. So yeah, this might appear brighter than it did when I was actually playing through it. But yeah, I've always been fascinated by the idea of like alternate like a set that progresses completely differently depending on where you go, like something more open-ended, almost like a game like Kid Chameleon, which is a platforming game for the Sega Genesis, has this very odd progression where you only see certain levels if you go certain ways, and it's very open-ended. And I'm always fascinated by the idea of a Doomwad that would do that. And if I ever do try to make a full-fledged Doomwad, and like I want to go full on with like Z-Doom and scripting, that's probably the idea that I would try, is like a bunch of smaller levels that kind of connect up to each other in different ways, so that you play through it and you'd get like kind of a different experience every time. That's an idea that I've been thinking about, but this episode is one of the only things that I've seen that even tries to do anything with that. So I think that's, I don't know, I think that's really interesting, and definitely, I mean, obviously there are Metroidvania type games, and you could do that with the Doom engine. There's a game like Strife, which is a commercial Doom engine game from '96 that has something more like a Metroidvania. But yeah, something that has like a level-based progression, but is more open-ended, and you could sort of return. I don't know, that's like halfway between Doom 1 and like a Metroidvania style might be interesting, and it's not something you really see, so I don't know. But yeah, this set does something interesting with it. Again, this is another example of these side areas kind of showing things that you wouldn't see normally that are more kind of Doom furniture-y, like these toilets. It reminds me of Alt again, but it doesn't really take away from the atmosphere of these levels. So I don't think people perceive it to be as campy as they often do with Doom furniture. I think it tends to have this perception of being kind of cutesy or campy when people do it. But although for all I know, the attitudes might have changed in the Doom community regarding that. Who knows? Okay, so we're close to the end here. I'm just digging through with the light amp. You can see that there's just a picture of the skybox there. I don't really know what the point of that is. Like, what is the whole deal with that? Why do that? Maybe they just didn't want to, like, this set really stubbornly sticks to trying to do things that are only in the original game. So it's possible it's like, well, we want a painting here, but we're just going to use the original textures. Anyway, you can see I just loaded from the old save or whatever, so some of the stuff that I picked up isn't going to show up, but that's fine. So that was Netherworld Citadel by Natural 20, aka also known as Email Brundage. One of his greatest maps, I would say. Definitely recommend playing through this whole set. If you can, try it on the Switch too, if you like playing on the Switch. I mean, I prefer, PC with mouse and keyboard, but yeah, I don't have much else to say. I'm about to go on a trip, so I'll come back probably next month, but I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I will see you on the next video.